I am a resident of the small town of Winton, which is located in Hertford County. Hertford County is approximately 1 hour southwest of Norfolk, Virginia, and not quite 2 hours from the Outer Banks of North Carolina. The Outer Banks consisting of Manteo, Kill Devil's Hill, Nag's Head, uh, Kill Devil Hill being where the Wright brothers flew their first airplane. The picture that you see here is a picture that was taken in my backyard looking from my bedroom window approximately 2 years ago. As you can see, we are a rural area. We have deer. There's a family of deer that comes through late in the evening just about every day. As we move forward here, I am a dentist. I have a office in Ahoskie, and I've been practicing there for 30 years. I am also a member of the Choanoke Indian tribe. The Choanoke Indians are considered Eastern Woodland Indians, and there are divisions that can be made based on linguistics, where you have the Iroquois Indians, which would consist of the Meherrin, which is another local Indian group, and the Tuscarora, and the Cherokee Indians. And you have the Algonquin Indians, which would include the Choanokes and the Powhatan Indians. The Powhatan Indians being the ones that are associated with Jamestown, Virginia, and the story of John Smith. What you see here is a drawing done by John White. John White was an explorer and an artist back in the 1580s when the English started exploring this area. What you'll notice here is what we call a palisades around the little houses that you see there. You'll notice right here where the cursor is, you'll see this is really a fence that goes around the village here. And let's get back to where we were. Okay, this is a what we call a palisade here. If you look at the structures inside the palisade, you'll see that they are what we call longhouses. The Eastern Woodland Indians lived in houses that were built with a wooden structure. They would use saplings, which are small trees, for the framework, and then they would cover the outside with anything ranging from some type of hide, like a deer hide. Perhaps they would mix some mud and straw to make a covering, but that is what we lived in. We did not live in teepees. I know we tend to associate Indians with teepees, but teepees are mobile, and the longhouses are more of a permanent structure. The Eastern Woodland Indians tended to live along rivers and streams, and they hunted. They also grew gardens, so they were more of a stationary people. This is a model of what a village would look like. Again, the same thing, you see the longhouses. One of the things with the longhouses is that as a family grew, they would just extend the house and they would just make it a longer house. This is another portion of the model here. And this one, if you look over, you can see the canoes along here. And if you notice the canoe, it looks like it's just kind of hollowed out there. And what you see here is a demonstration of how a canoe would have been made, where they use instruments. Of course, these are more modern day instruments, but they would use instruments to remove the bark from the side of the log, and then they would shape it and smooth it out. And at the top of it, you see that there is a fire there. And what they would do, this is a controlled fire, where they would burn the wood away, and then they would instruments to scrape that out, and then that would give you the area where the person would sit when they were in the canoe. This is a picture of the Chowan River, and of course it gets its name from the Choanoke Indians. This is at the end of one of the streets in Winton. This is about a mile and a half from where I live. But if you were to get in your boat and go to the right and continue going, you would end up in the Albemarle Sound. This is a map showing where Hertford County is located, and this would be about where that picture of the Chowan River was taken here. As you follow down the Chowan River, again you would come into the Albemarle Sound, and you would end up here at the Outer Banks with Kill Devil Hill and the Roanoke Island Festival Park. Now, as I mentioned, I am a member of the Choanoke tribe, and the history of the Choanokes goes back thousands of years before first contact with the English settlers. Archaeological studies show that there were about 19 villages located along the Choanoke or Chowan River, with the largest village being outside of the present-day town of Harrisville in Hertford County. Studies go back showing that that village was established about 800 A.D. It was the largest of the villages. It's estimated that there were about 2,100 people occupying that village. The chief at that time was Chief Matanon. Now, going back to the Roanoke Island, around 1585 is when they first attempted to colonize Roanoke Island with Sir Walter Raleigh and his trying to establish a colony there. In 1586, Ralph Lane, who was one of the English explorers, sailed up the Albemarle Sound, making different stops. Now, when he got to the Choanoke village in Hertford County, he encountered Chief Matanon, and actually he wasn't very kind to him. Prior to Lane, the contact that the Choanokes had been pretty friendly, but when Ralph Lane came along, he was trying to find a passageway to find some gold and silver that they had heard stories about. So he actually took the chief prisoner and interrogated him. The chief, in trying to get rid of him, sent him along his way further up the Chowan River, heading further north, where he knew there was a rather fierce Indian tribe, and he was thinking that he would just get Lane to go up there and those other Indians would take care of him. But what Lane did as a bit of an insurance policy is that he kidnapped the chief's son Skyko and held him prisoner as he went further up the Chowan River. His exploits failed, but he survived and he came back through, and the story gets a little bit vague as to what happened to Skyko. We don't know whether he was eventually released. Some versions say that he was released, others say that he was killed. But anyway, Ralph Lane goes on back down the Albemarle Sound to the Roanoke colony, which a couple of years later would become the famous Lost Colony. The Choanokes continued to be followed through history, we find that in 1675, the Chowanokes were moved by the English settlers to Gates County, which is to the east of Hertford County there, and they were placed on an Indian reservation there. This was the first Indian reservation in North Carolina, and some people say there was actually the first Indian reservation in the United States. When the reservation was established, you had 11,360 acres. Over time, though, as we're very familiar with stories, the English settlers encroached upon the territory owned by the Indians, some of them just taking it, some purchasing it, some finding various ways to acquire the property. We can follow through history, and we hear complaints that were registered by the leaders of the Chowanokes about people taking their property. Finally, in 1785, just about all of that 11,000 acres was gone, but there was one person who did give 30 acres of land to the remaining Chowanokes. And then as we follow through the history with the different families of the Chowanokes, the most prominent families being the Bennetts and the Robins. And then in 1821, someone wrote, through some fancy legal maneuvering, the last of the land was lost. So at that point, the Chowanokes continued to exist, but what they did was to assimilate into the larger community. They maintained their identity as Indians, but they did not have an Indian reservation. They continued with their culture, they continued with their Chowanok leaders, but again, history more or less says that the Chowanokes ceased to exist, although we know this was not true. Then in 2011, this marker recognizing the location of the Chowanok village was placed outside Harrisville, and you can read up there about it being the principal village of the Chowanokes. Now in this next slide here, you see some of the members of the Robbins family here. Again, more of the Robbinses along with some of our tribal members. Again, tribal members wearing their regalia. And again, you notice I use the word regalia. We do not refer to it as a costume. This time of year, Halloween coming along, people wear costumes, but we wear regalia just as college graduates wear their academic regalia during graduation exercises. So the regalia that you see are the native regalia that we use during ceremonial events. This is the seal for the Chowanok Nation. You will see on the seal the plants here, which represent tobacco, which is very important in Indian culture. It is also one of the major crops that's grown here in Hertford County. Then you see the stalks of corn growing. Again, corn being important to the Indians, and again another crop that's still grown today very much here in Hertford County. The bear, there are plenty of black bears in this area, and behind it you see the rising sun. 1586 is up there again because of the contact with the English settlers. Here you have a picture of Chief Thomas Lewis and two of our tribal members. If you look at the headdress that Chief Lewis is wearing, that would be a traditional Algonquin style headdress. We did not wear war bonnets. Again, that is something that is associated more with the Plains Indians. Here you see the grand entry at our powwow each year. In the fourth weekend in April, we hold a powwow where we come together, not only our tribe, but other tribes. We celebrate our culture. We invite members of the community to come out and learn about us. And in addition to being an educational activity, it's sort of a homecoming or family reunion for tribal members. You will notice that the two ladies here in the grand entry who are carrying the staffs, one is an MIA flag, the other is a United States flag. They are both dressed in buckskin, which would be a traditional regalia for Native Americans. In this slide you see seashells on the regalia, and again, being a coastal area, seashells being an abundant, a lot of natives use them to decorate their regalia. Here, this gentleman was the male head dancer at our powwow. You will see that in his left hand he is holding a fan feather. In his right hand he has a dancing stick. Each regalia is designed by the individual, so no two are alike. The regalia reflects the personality of the dancer. On the dancer's back here, you'll see a bustle made out of feathers, and on the next slide here, you will see his headdress. That is called a roach. It is usually made out of horsehair, and again, he's wearing a headband, and then he has the feathers coming off of his forehead. And again, it's individually designed regalia. This is a shawl dancer. We do have competition dancing, and this was taken during one of the competitions. You will see the way her shawl kind of spreads out. That is one of the more exciting things when you're watching the dance. They dance with a lot of energy, twisting, turning, a lot of jumps. And again, here you see two of the ladies as they're competing. This is the male version of the shawl dancer. Actually, the female shawl dancers started as the ladies wanting to be able to do the same type of dance that the guys were doing. The guys wear bustles. If you look at the dancer to the right, you will notice that he actually has two bustles on, a upper bustle and a lower bustle. That is how you can tell a fancy dancer from a male traditional dancer. He is not carrying a fan feather, but he is carrying two dancing sticks. The dancer to his right in the picture is also a fancy dancer. He is carrying a fan feather in his left hand and a dancing stick in his right hand. This would be male traditional dancer. You can see he has a single bustle as opposed to the double bustles of the fancy dancers. And in his right hand for a dancing stick, he is actually using a war club. And again, as you look at the designs on his regalia, again, that reflects, his personality. Now, behind him, you see Chief Lewis, who's also a male traditional regalia, but he is not wearing a bustle. This picture was not taken at our powwow. This was actually taken at the Husky Heritage Day. If you notice, you'll see the Bud Light tent in the background. Our powwows are alcohol-free events, so that Bud Light tent would not be at our powwow. And again, this is just another shawl dancer. You'll notice that she has the animal skins coming down along her shoulder, and I'm not sure whether or not she has this braided into her hair or not. That's a rather long skin to be braided into your hair, but it is very customary to see young ladies with the skins braided into their hair. Again, more dancers showing you just the variety of the regalia. The young lady in the picture was our head female dancer. And again, you see she has a fan feather in her right hand. She has her shawl draped over her left arm. Whenever ladies go into the arena to dance, they always carry a shawl. Now, her outfit is a cloth outfit. It is not the buckskin that we saw in one of the earlier slides. The cloth regalias came along once they had the contact with the English and they started trading with the English. The drum is the very important part of our regalia. They are the ones that supply the music. They provide the beat. This is one of the drums at our powwow. You see one drummer has on a regalia. He was a male traditional dancer, so that's why he is dressed. The others just have on their casual clothes. And as you can see, the dancer has his son with him, and as he's starting him out at an early age, so that he is able to learn how to drum, and when he gets older, he will join his father at the drum. We have a school day program on Fridays. As part of school day, we have different artisans demonstrating different things. This is pottery. This was not one of our members. This was done by a member of the Hallawasaponi tribe, one of our neighboring tribes. We support them. They support us. This artisan has pottery in the North Carolina Museum of Natural History in Raleigh, and she also has some pieces that are in the Smithsonian in Washington. Also, as part of school day, we have Newell Farms there with us, and they have animals that are refuge animals. And here you see members of the tribe and their regalia are centered around the wolf here in the picture. In addition to our powwow, the state of North Carolina holds an event in Raleigh the third weekend in November as part of Native American History Month. The month of November is designated by North Carolina as Native American Month. And they come together with all the tribes from the state and they hold events. And then in March, we have the Unity Conference, where United Tribes of North Carolina holds a 3-day conference. They have a mini powwow there. They also have an awards banquet where they recognize leaders of the various tribes. And during the day sessions, they present seminars on topics that are of value or of interest to Native Americans, ranging from health care to state recognition, national recognition, housing issues. So we not only are trying to keep alive our local culture, but there's an effort for the tribes to come together as a whole to keep the culture of the Indian in North Carolina very much alive. And as a matter of fact, North Carolina has the largest Indian population east of the Mississippi River, and they also have the 5th largest Indian population in the United States. Just this Wednesday, our tribe closed on purchasing a house and a total of 6 acres of property, which we will renovate the house, and we will clear the trees from behind the property so that we will have an open space that we will be able to host festivals, and this will be our tribal center. So we are still planning on holding activities and continuing to grow and to make our presence known in Hertford County. Now, as we look at this slide, this is HOPPERIDE, which is the Roanoke Public Health Transportation Authority. Now, this Roanoke has nothing to do with the Roanoke Indian Tribe. It merely shares the name. One of the health issues that we have is transportation issues. In the 1970s, about 40 years ago, someone recognized that the need to have some type of public transportation, so they started the CPTA. In Hertford County, to get around, you pretty much have to have a car, or you have to have access to a car. There are really no taxis. Town of Hosky does have one small taxi service, but in terms of trying to get from one town to another town, you pretty much have to have your own transportation, or you have to pay someone to take you to the doctor for your medical appointments. The CPTA bus here is not a taxi. It's a group transportation, and it does not have any set route. You call them the day before. You need the bus to pick you up. They'll come by, pick you up. They will have a route mapped out based on where they have to go. They will drop you off for your appointment, and sometime during the day they will come back and pick you up. But this slide is just to mention the transportation issues that we have in Hertford County. Hertford County is approximate population-wise, it's about the same size as the city of Loma Linda. I think Loma Linda has between 23,000 and 24,000 people. Hertford County has just a little bit over 24,000 people. The three major towns in Hertford County are Winton, which is the oldest town in the county. It also serves as the county seat, where you have the local county government offices. You also have the county courthouse. Then you have Murfreesboro, which is the second oldest town, and they have several of their buildings have been restored and have historic designations. This particular building that you see is on the campus of Chowan College, which is a four-year college. This is the McDowell's Columns building, or commonly called the Columns building, and this building was built in 1851. The other town is Ahoskie, and Ahoskie has a little bit over 4,000 people, and it is the retail center of Hertford County. It is also where most of the medical practices are located. And talking about the services that are provided, we have three main groups that provide the services. There are statistics that I could give you on Hertford County, but I pretty much just want to point out to you what the leading health concerns are for the residents of Hertford County. Okay. The top 5 causes of death in Hertford County are cancers of all type, heart disease. Number 3, we have diabetes, followed by stroke, and the 5th leading cause is chronic lower respiratory failure. Also high on the list is infant mortality. As a matter of fact, Hertford County rates number 1 in the terms of infant mortality. While the numbers are small, when you look at it as the percentage of population, infant mortality unfortunately gives Hertford County the distinction of being number 1 in the state. Other areas that we are concerned with are teenage pregnancies. Now, the different groups in the county do work together with collaborations to try to address these issues. Now, this is a picture of Vidant Roanoke Chowan Hospital. Roanoke Chowan Hospital was established in the 1940s, and then in the 1970s they built a new building. Over the time it's been renovated, and Roanoke Chowan Hospital has become a part of Vidant Hospital Network, with the flagship hospital being Pitt Memorial Hospital in Greenville, which is associated with the medical school there at Greenville. The other leading institution for healthcare is the Hertford County Health Department, or rather the Hertford County Public Health Authority. This is their clinic building in Winton. Here, this is where the administrative office is. It's also where the office of the sanitarian is, and other non-clinical services. Now, this is in Ahoskie, again, Hertford County Public Health Authority, and this is the building there. You'll see that we have the clinical services in one portion of the building, and then on the end of the building to your left, you will see Hertford County Home Health Agency, to try to meet the needs of patients who need care in their homes, so that they don't have to have extended stays in the hospital. We do have a home health care agency with licensed nurses that go out and provide regular services to our patients. Now, this picture was taken about 2 weeks ago after Hurricane Matthew came through. So you can see that we were impacted by the hurricane. This is the flooding at the health department. The water did continue to rise after this picture was taken, and currently this building is not usable at this time. On the back side of the building, there's another building, so all the services have been crammed into the smaller building, along with a mobile unit that we've got. So even facing flooding, the health department is still functioning. At this time, I just want to talk a little bit about flooding. This is a picture of another part of Ahoskie. This is the Ahoskie Recreation Complex. It's located behind the hospital. In 1999, this was one of the residential areas. As a matter of fact, this was the area where people wanted to live in Ahoskie. Hurricane Floyd came through, and this area flooded. As a matter of fact, we were living back here, and we were flooded, so we know what it's like trying to recover from a flood and what it's like living in a FEMA trailer while you try to get your house restored. And that's what happened with all these houses back here. In 1999, they were renovated, and then 18 months later, Tropical Storm Allison came through, and a lot of these houses flooded again. So we were able to participate in a buyout program, so all the houses were bought out, and as part of that arrangement, no more houses could be built back here. The town of Ahoskie now owns the property, and trying to turn something into a positive, because you have had all the infrastructure in place. They were able to get grants, and they have developed a recreational complex back here. Here you see some of the playground equipment that they've got. To the left of that, there's now a softball field back there. We don't have that picture up here, but our house would have been about where center field is in that in the softball stadium. So out of the adversity of flooding and people losing their houses and a neighborhood being destroyed, We tried to turn that into a positive by providing recreational opportunities for the citizens of Hertford County. Uh, Now, one of the things that also came about was this amphitheater stage. This is what it looks like when it's not flooded, and this is where we have been holding our powwow for the past 5 years. And again, all this is a result of the flooding. Also, as part of Matthew, this is one of the local roads that was washed out, which brings us to mentioning first responders, emergency preparedness, people having to go out and rescue people who were trapped in their cars, people who were in their houses with rising water. We also have to think about the mosquito problem that arises when you have standing water after a hurricane. So there are just a whole lot of issues that are health related. People not having to find detours, find ways to get to their medical appointments because roads are washed out. Now, the health department in the early 2000s decided to work with the hospital to create a community health center. What the hospital had done in the 1990s was to become a management company for the local physicians. So a lot, not all, but a lot of the local physicians sold their practices to the hospital. And after a few years, a lot of them decided they really weren't happy, things weren't working out. So the director of the health department at that time, in working with the president of the hospital, decided to establish a community health center. So they went through the process to get federal approval to do the community health center. Now, our community health center is a little bit different from most because there are a lot of private practices that were incorporated into that health center. So a lot of times when people go to this community health center, they still think that they're going to see their family MD that they had been seeing for the past 25 or 30 years. It's just that he's in a different building. But as you see, there are actually 5 sites that we've got. We have the Ahoskie site, we have the Murfreesboro site, there's a site in Coleraine, and just last year we added a site in Cresswell, which is on the way to the Outer Banks. It's about 45 minutes from the Ahoskie site. There's a need down there. They approached us, and we decided it was a good fit. So we started services last April, and so far things are working out better than we anticipated for the amount of time that the office has been open. So as you can see, we offer comprehensive care. We have pediatrics. We have a pharmacy, and this building serves as the corporate office. Now, we were able to get funding as part of the push, a few years ago to make monies available to stimulate the economy, and we were able to build this brand new building. You see here, a very modern facility. Upstairs, where you see those windows, that's where the corporate boardroom is, where the board of directors meet and where seminars are held. And this is just really a very nice building that we have here. This on with the pharmacy, we do have a 340B medications program, which is designed to help people who have problems trying to get their medications, to be able to get their medications at a reduced fee. And so far it's been a very successful program, both for the patient as well as for the community health center. One of the other collaborative efforts that we've had has been with the East Carolina Dental School. The dental school at East Carolina was established about 6-7 years ago, and what they wanted to do was to be able to have students that would have a focus on going out into underserved areas. So what they decided to do was that when it came to the senior year, instead of doing your senior year at the dental school, they would build these dental service centers out in different communities, and they would have their senior students do rotations through the various centers. Community health centers, one of the things that they're supposed to do is to offer dental care. So we saw it as an opportunity to partner with East Carolina University, and Ahoskie actually became the first one of these community service learning centers to open, and it served as the model for the others. There were supposed to have been 10 of them located throughout the state, ranging from the coast to the mountains, but I think they've decided to stop at 8. At the center, they have a group of fourth-year students that rotate through for so many weeks, and then they have 2 general practice residency students there, and then there are 2 faculty members. And this has been very successful for the dental school, and it's also helped the dental patients who've had problems being able to get in to see a dentist because of the shortage of dentists in the area. Now you notice there's this breezeway connecting the 2 buildings. The dental school is owned by the university in the state of North Carolina. The health center is, of course, owned by their nonprofit corporation. But this breezeway is functional as well as it's symbolic, in that it is a bridge between the medical needs of the patient and the dental needs of the patient. The 2 work together, as a matter of fact, to help patients who perhaps don't receive Medicaid, they don't have dental insurance, they don't have enough private funds to afford their dental care. There's an arrangement for a sliding fee scale for the dental patients, that if they are a patient of the community health center and they qualify for the community health center's sliding fee scale, then they will qualify for a sliding fee scale at the dental school. And to make that available, the Foundation for Roanoke Chowan Hospital has established a grant to help fund those fees that the dental school would be losing out on by going to a sliding fee scale. So again, this is just another example of the institutions in Hertford County, the health department, the hospital, the community health center, and the ECU School of Dentistry working together to improve the health of the citizens of Hertford County, many of whom are descendants of the original inhabitants of this area, the Choanoke Indians.